Mary had always felt a sense of warmth when she thought of her stepmother. From the moment her father had remarried, she'd embraced the new family dynamic with an open heart. She remembered the first time she and her stepmother had sat down together, talking about everything from favorite books to small childhood memories. The connection had felt easy, natural even, and Mary had never imagined that anything could disturb the peace between them. But recently, something had changed. It started innocuously enough. She had been going through some old family documents, sorting through papers that had piled up over the years. She hadn't expected to find anything unusual, but then she noticed it. There was a strange discrepancy in one of the old records, something about her stepmother's past that didn't quite add up. At first, Mary dismissed it, thinking it was a mere mistake. But the more she looked, the more she began to realize that the discrepancy was far more than just an error. It felt like a missing piece of a puzzle. Mary had always known that her stepmother was a private person, someone who rarely spoke about her life before marrying her father. She had once mentioned a few vague stories about her childhood, but those conversations were always brief, almost as if she were trying to keep certain parts of her past locked away. Mary had never questioned it before. After all, everyone had their secrets. But this was different. This wasn't just a quirk, it was a clue. Curiosity gnawed at her as she dug deeper, talking to other family members, scouring old letters, and piecing together what little information she could find. Her stepmother's behavior seemed more and more suspicious. She would change the subject whenever certain topics came up, especially anything related to her past. There were strange phone calls, cryptic letters, moments of secrecy that Mary had once shrugged off, but now they seemed to tell a different story. A story of someone hiding something. The knot in Mary's stomach tightened as she began to realize that her stepmother wasn't just avoiding certain topics, she was hiding something monumental. The more she uncovered, the clearer the pattern became. Her stepmother was keeping a secret. Mary's heart raced as she put together a timeline of her stepmother's life before meeting her father. The more she uncovered, the more she could feel that something was off. And then, one day, it all came together. Her stepmother had a child, another child, one Mary had never known about. The revelation hit Mary like a tidal wave. She stared at the records in her hands, the weight of the truth sinking in. Her mind spun with questions. How could her stepmother have kept this a secret? Why hadn't she ever told anyone? What did this mean for their family? For a moment, Mary felt nothing but shock and disbelief. How could she have been so blind? Her stepmother had always been so loving, so caring, so present. Yet, there was a whole part of her life that had remained hidden, a life Mary knew nothing about. The emotions were overwhelming. Anger, hurt, confusion, they all surged through her, and she felt lost in a sea of unanswered questions. But then, as the initial shock wore off, something else began to settle in. A sense of empathy. Mary thought about her stepmother, the woman who had always been there for her, who had filled her life with love and support. She had to have carried this secret for so long. The burden of hiding a child, of not being able to share something so deeply personal, must have weighed heavily on her. Maybe she had kept it hidden because she was scared of how it would change everything. Maybe she hadn't known how to tell Mary's father or even Mary herself. The fear of judgment, of rejection, it must have been suffocating. Mary's mind shifted from anger to understanding. She could see now that her stepmother had been living with this secret, this painful chapter of her life, and had done her best to shield their family from it. But in doing so, she had unintentionally created a wall between them, a wall that now stood in front of Mary, blocking her view of the woman she thought she knew so well. The discovery was still painful, but Mary knew that she had to be compassionate. This wasn't just about a hidden child, it was about a life that had been shaped by fear and silence. Mary didn't know what would happen next or how their relationship would change, but one thing was clear. She could no longer look at her stepmother the same way. She would need time to process this new truth, but she would also need to be strong for her family, strong for her stepmother, who had been carrying this secret all on her own. Mary sat in silence, the weight of it all pressing down on her. She had no idea how to bring up the discovery. Could she confront her stepmother? What would she even say? But one thing was certain: Mary wasn't going to let this secret destroy the bond they shared. She would approach it with love, with patience, and with understanding. Her heart ached for her stepmother, for the years of solitude she must have endured in silence. And for the first time, Mary understood the full complexity of what it meant to love someone, to be part of a family, and to carry the weight of secrets that sometimes no one was ever ready to hear. As Mary stood up, her resolve strengthened. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter of honesty, understanding, and healing.